What's up everyone, welcome back to another video on the JayBee Milly channel. I am JayBee and today we're going to be breaking down the screenshots that we've got from HBO Max's Velma, more specifically the first episode, which is supposedly just called Velma. So first and foremost, there is some credit due. So shout out to Velma Brazil on Twitter, I'm going to leave their account in the description, and also shout out to Scooby_News on Instagram, who seemingly arranged this into episode order and also I guess chronological order. I'm not too sure, but we first saw this on Scooby_News, who in turn cited Velma Brazil. So I'm going to leave both of those accounts in the description down below. Huge thank you to them. So we're going to dive into this. We have 6 screenshots from the first episode titled Velma. I'm going to go through it in the order that Scooby News actually posted it, as I guess we're going to assume for the time being that that is the order that it's going to appear in the episode, although we're not going to take that for granted. It's just going to be in the back of our minds throughout this breakdown. So here we have our first look at, I guess, the still of Velma and Daphne together. Now, I actually really like the design for Daphne. If you guys have watched the channel consistently, I am the biggest Daphne fan out there. It takes a lot for me to really warm up to a Daphne, and I actually like this take. Now, we haven't heard the voicing yet, we haven't seen, I guess, her in motion, but for the time being, I'm digging this new look for Daphne. It's actually really cool, and this whole animation style in general is pretty great, I'm gonna be honest. Like, there's levels to what I appreciate in terms of animation, and from what I see here, this may be one of the better looking Scooby projects that we've had for a while now. Now, of course, elephant in the room, Velma, people are gonna say what they want to say about Mindy Kaling voicing her, Mindy Kaling being the head of this, and also the kind of race change. Me personally, I'm not too bothered about any race changing and stuff. If the content's good, if there's a good reason behind this, then I'm all for it. I'm not going to judge it yet. Now, I am going to judge it if it sucks, because me being a person of colour, if this is god-awful, then it's just another stain in what amounts to be representation. This just seems like another woke cash grab, as opposed to making a pretty good ethnic take on Velma, which I think I've personally always been on board for. Like, my favourite takes of Velma are the Morgan Baden books, from which she is Hispanic. I think that actually adds a lot of depth to her character, and coming from an Indian family myself, it does explain that braininess. I know people try and twist it like, oh, of course they make the smart one Indian, that's kind of racist. But at least in my experience with Indian parents, there is a lot of pressure on you to perform, at least certain generation immigrant Indian parents. So maybe that's what they're factoring into. If so, yeah, that's compelling. It's a good reason why Velma is how she is why she wants to prove herself to be the best. I think that adds some weight to it. I don't know about you guys, but that's my take on this first screenshot here. In terms of chronology, this could be a cold open. So we've all seen at this point that shot of the person in the shower that's been, I guess, brutally, unalived. I'm not sure what YouTube's going to allow in terms of monetization with this, but we have that scene there. And I think what we're seeing with this is Daphne's and Velma's reaction to that. Although why Daphne looks annoyed, I'm not sure. But I guess we're seeing the reaction to something. And here we have the next screenshot, which is seemingly Velma being chased or pursuing down some type of hallway. Now, I don't want to get too bogged down with the ordering. Like I say, it could just be Scooby News posted this randomly, and it's just random parts of the same episode. And I think people are going to have a lot of theories about this. Could this be the first look at that Ghostface killer from the teaser trailer? Is this our first look at some of the main antagonists? And I'm going to say yes. And I'm also going to say no. I think some of these creatures we can expect to see, or at least creatures like them. But ultimately, I'm actually going to speculate what I don't think I've seen people speculate on this before. I think this is a screenshot from the intro. So I don't know what we can expect from that, if it's going to be a pop song, an original song, or maybe just some composition. But I think that once we have that cold open, in typical Scooby fashion, we're going to see the body fade away, and then song start, and this is just one part of Velma running down the corridor, maybe a monster swipes at the screen at her, and that's when we fade to the Velma logo. I do strongly think that this is what we're seeing from the intro. Now let's put across my timeline bias and let's just break this down as it is. From what we can see, we have almost Scrooge looking monster from the left hand side. Very interesting. I mean, we do know, or at least we can speculate from Twitter, that it's in Crystal Cove. So could this be one of the corrupt ancestors of the gang? Possibly. It definitely seems like they're from a different time period. And to the right, we see a bit more of the spooky paranormal side of things. Not really humanoid monster. Don't really have too many thoughts on them, but they do seem to be protruding out of some paintings, which, one, is kind of making me think of Super Mario 64 in that we could maybe see them being portals into a dimension, but ultimately the reason why I think this is the intro is this is just a classical Scooby trope. This is a level up from the eye moving on the portrait. This is full on like Vigo from Ghostbusters 2. This is just them manifesting it in a bit of a kooky, wacky way. I don't know how to describe it. To me, this just screams intro. If I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I guess you can roast me in the comments if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's what I think this is. This is another intriguing look at the world of Velma. If I was just going off what I know about Scooby-Doo, I'm gonna say this is Velma visiting Daphne's house. But from the look of things, it actually seems like Fred's going to be the one with like rich parents and that kind of high class upbringing. I mean, it could be Velma's attending a private school and everyone's like that. Maybe she's got in on a scholarship, so she's kind of, it's underlining the outcast feeling. I don't know, but I'm going to say for now this is Fred's house. And I don't know what else to say. Definitely I like the ambience it's setting up. I like the vibe, but in truth, I don't know what to say about this. I do think, in terms of the narrative, we're going to have the culprit making some type of movement. If we're going from Ghostface, I guess he could be keeping tabs on each of the members of Mystery Inc. And maybe Velma is chilling at Fred's. Maybe this is her house. She hears something from outside. And it's almost that typical horror thing of, let's open the door, who's out there? Look right, look left, rustling, maybe a bunny comes out and it's a funny scene, or maybe she finds a clue out there, which ultimately adds to the overall narrative. Not really sure, it could be either, but, you know, we'll just have to wait and find out with this one. There's really not much to say about this screenshot in particular. Now, we have a look at Spooner's Malt Shop. So, one, I guess a positive that they're bringing things back to classic Scooby is definitely a nice reference, but there's always going to be that kind of, I guess we can call it morbid undertones, it seems, because it's a normal diner without a doubt, but there is that banner down there. I don't know if you can see it clearly enough, but it does actually read Remembering Brenda. Now, we can assume that Brenda is the girl that unfortunately ended up being one of the victims of the villain in that shower scene. So we're gonna have a little memorial here, and you could argue, one, that's too morbid. Even for adult animation, maybe it's too much. I'm going to play devil's advocate for now and argue, right, that was a horrific scene, yes, but surely in order to do that horrific thing, Velma is a good person for wanting to bring that bad person to justice, so we're gonna be on her side. And with this Remembering Brenda, unless it's played for comedy, it proves that there is stakes to this. We could be invested in Brenda. Brenda is gonna seem like a full-on character that we've lost, and I think that bodes well for the tone of the show. I don't want to see blood and gore just for laughs. This isn't meant to be Rick and Morty, personally. This seems like it's a murder mystery, which you can argue has a place in the world of Scooby, or doesn't. But if they're gonna do it, I want to see it done right, as opposed to, someone died. Isn't that funny? Because Velma still says jinkies. I don't really want that. So if they're gonna make things a bit more serious, then it's at least good to see that they're going that direction as opposed to doing it for comedy. It is interesting to see from this, though, that we don't see any member of Mystery Inc. in that crowd. So whether this is just a scene and there's clues there that we pick up as an audience, I don't really know. It's a little bit of a tricky one. But yeah, this screenshot more than any, I would like some feedback on in the comment section, because this is actually the first look that I've kind of felt a bit underwhelmed with the visuals. It's perfectly fine, but for me this just seems like something that would be in an early 2000s Grand Theft Auto mobile game, or that kind of Selector Story mobile game. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to have the polish of the rest of the character models, the rest of the show, so I don't know what to make of it, but yeah. So there's probably the least to say about this screenshot than all the others, except it's just a pretty good look at Velma. Not really too much to say about it, although one thing I do want to point out is this race change, quote unquote, could actually have a bit more meaning to it than we originally think. This is just me speculating from my insider perspective of being raised in a half-Sikh environment. Now, she is wearing a bracelet there. That could just be all it is. Maybe a bangle. But it could also be a Kara or a Kara. I don't know the spelling. I apologise, Grandpa. Please don't haunt me from the grave. But that is actually that could be one of the 5 Ks of Sikhism. So with her Indian heritage, if we get a bit of that in there, that could add a lot of culture to that character and maybe even fit in with the story. Don't know if that's happening. That's just a wild speculation from me. And, let's be honest, there's not too much to say about this screenshot, except I guess if we're going from that old narrative last time, if we've just had that memorial, maybe that angers Velma, maybe someone says something, she starts to gather clues from who's there, who isn't there, and she's like, oh yeah, now it's all coming together. Like, from that scene, now we could be seeing that progression, like, I'm going to solve this mystery. Which is what we need from episode 1. We need, why is Velma wanting to solve this mystery? What does she have to prove? Is she just a really good person? That could be it. But I think with it being a TV show, it needs a bit more than that. Maybe she wants revenge, or maybe she cares about a character that was close to Brenda. Maybe it's a friendship thing. We don't know, but this is definitely, it looks like that turning point for Velma when she knows that she's going to solve the case. I'm going to get a lot of criticism for this, but this may be my favourite screenshot of episode 1, and it's purely the dynamic that we're seeing here. It reminds me, not tonally, but I guess factually, of, the Mystery Incorporated fan series, which paired up Velma and Fred, which never really gets done in terms of Scooby stuff. And also it reminds me of Morgan Baden's books, which have paired up Fred and Velma before. I think this is pretty cool. And for all you can say, oh, Fred, he just looks like a TikTok douchebag or something. I don't know what you're going to call Fred. He seems a bit vain, a bit too pompous. But I don't know. I'm not against that. They kind of did the same thing with Freddie Prinze Jr.'s portrayal of the character in terms of making him like, here's Fred on Fred, the many faces of me. Oh, it was my plan, And I think Himbo Fred is a good way to go for a narrative in terms of character, because Fred is fantastic in, Where Are You? He's a good, wholesome, groovy guy, but I don't think in terms of a show that's not really prioritizing the spectacle, the spook, this is more prioritizing who are these people and how are they and their personalities going to factor into the mystery. Like with any TV show, I think this is going to prioritize character then narrative, whereas I think Scooby is more narrative by nature. It's not how's Shaggy going to feel about this, how's Daphne going to feel about this, it's who's under that mask. I think this is going to be reversed, like maybe Velma's wearing a mask, maybe Fred's vanity is in itself a mask, and taking that off he could be a really caring person. Think Mystery Incorporated. He seems like a bit of a goofy guy in terms of the animated series. He just makes ridiculous traps, he doesn't have time for Daphne, but under that mask, as he explained, he's just holding on to the idea of not losing someone like he lost his parents. Could we be seeing something like that here? Maybe. Maybe not. It could just be stupid goofiness for the sake of it. Let's face it, we don't know the quality of this series yet. But if they've done it right, maybe it's a bit loftier than we're originally led to think. But I like this because you see Velma maybe pretty enamoured with Fred. I think it was released that Velma is going to have a crush on Fred, and I don't dislike that at all. There's going to be people that are saying that they're backtracking from Trick or Treat, making Velma a lesbian, but it's a multiverse. Like, yes, Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo Velma could be a lesbian, she could be bi, she's one of them, but this Velma could even be bi, could be whatever, like, you don't know. She has a crush on Fred in this narrative, that's all we need to know, that's all we need to focus on, and that's fine. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It may even just be for comedy, the smart Velma kind of falling for himbo Fred who only cares about his hairstyle. I think that's a funny narrative to play with, as long as it isn't lingered on to a goofy extent, you know, like, we don't want too much of that. But I like the idea of Velma and Fred teaming up initially. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And we're by a police station here, so that's going to be another question. Like, what is the role of the police? Why does Velma not go and say, hey, listen, here's my evidence, please make the arrest? You know, that's going to be what we see, and I hope they don't go the cliche route of, oh, she's just a kid, let's not believe the kid. Because how many times do we see that? Do we really need to see it again? If they do it right, I guess we can't complain, but if they're going a radical new direction with Scooby, at least be a bit creative in the story that you're telling. So I hope that there's a reason why the police aren't going to be involved, or maybe they've got the wrong lead. Oh, I mean, they could make it so Velma, they're not going to believe in Indian, but I don't know. I don't really want that shoving down off-roads every 5 seconds, you know. Oh, she's an outcast. Like, I don't know. They can have it if they do it well. But if it's just there to serve as, oh, that's why the police are being nasty to her, then honestly, not a great series. But this is my favourite one so far. I can't wait to see Himbo Fred and Nerdy Velma dynamic. That's something that we need in mainstream Scooby as well. We need more of that. It's just good. And even in Mystery Incorporated, they could have leaned into that a bit more. But that's besides the point. So yeah, this is what we have on episode 1. I'm going to leave this video out for 24 hours just to make sure that nothing's wrong with copyright. So yeah, are you looking forward to this series? Are you not? Please let us know in the comment section down below. And what are your thoughts on the screenshots and my theories about where it fits in with the timeline of the episode? And if you do want to see breakdowns of the future episodes, then please like, comment and subscribe to JayBee Milly.